Tsarskoye Selo was the summer residence for Russian emperors for more than 200 years. It's now one of the most popular museums in Russia. In 2003, the world-famous Amber Room was restored here. Its history and restoration read like the plot of a detective story, a story that isn't over just yet. In the 20th century, Tsarskoye Selo was renamed Pushkin. The town of Pushkin is 24 kilometers away from St. Petersburg. BORIS IGDALOV, the head of an amber workshop, has been traveling this road for 23 years. His destination is in the old part of Pushkin. This is the building where the carvers work. Thanks to them, the Amber Room was brought back to life. This chamber, totally decorated in amber, was presented in 1716. It was a gift from the Prussian king Friedrich Wilhelm to the Russian Tsar Peter the Great. In the 20th century, during the Second World War, this masterpiece was lost. In order to reconstruct it, artists had to thoroughly study the style of 18th century German carvers. Another difficulty was that, unlike Germany, Russia had never had a school of amber carving.
First, we had to train our artists. They had to forget what they knew and start to learn all over again. They had to drop their own style and pick up someone else's. Artists always seek to express themselves, but in our case, we had to express the manner of the artists and the culture of the 18th century.
As the Amber Room was being assembled in the Tsarskoye Selo Palace in 1770, 4 mosaics made from precious stones of different colors and depicting the 5 senses were added to the amber. Also, in order to make the work of the Prussian artists more colorful, chandeliers and mirrors were added to the design. This idea came from Bartolomeo Rastrelli, an architect who added a number of new features to the Amber Room design.
Rastrelli virtually redesigned the Amber Room. He came to Russia when he was a boy, together with his father, a well-known sculptor. Here in Russia, he created his masterpieces. Russia became his second home.
Another idea that Bartolomeo Rastrelli came up with was to create a park with summer pavilions near the palace. Tsarskoye Selo has a very special climate. The air here is said to have a healing effect. The Russian nobility used to spend the summer here. In 1918, the palace and the park became a museum.
We have approximately 2 million visitors annually. We even had to somewhat violate the Venice Charter on the conservation of monuments, because it has a section saying that only original elements should be preserved, and no modern elements should be added to replace those which have been lost.
But the losses were substantial. In the fall of 1941, 3 months after Germany attacked the Soviet Union, German troops were at the museum's gate. The staff didn't have enough time to strip the Amber Room. Instead, they tried to hide it inside the palace.
What they did was they tried to camouflage it. They used sackcloth, planks, and wallpaper. They put up wallpaper in order to create the impression that this was a normal room. They hoped that the Germans wouldn't search the palace thoroughly. But the Germans even had a special detachment which had orders to locate the Amber Room inside the palace.
After the Amber Room had been found, a group of German soldiers disassembled it within 36 hours. Bare walls were all that was left. Crates with amber panels were loaded onto a train and sent to Königsberg, the capital of East Prussia. Later, the room was reassembled in a hall in the southern wing of the royal castle. Dr. Alfred Roeder, an expert in amber, oversaw the work. During conversations with Nazi leaders, Roeder admired the fact that this Prussian masterpiece, which had been presented to Russia, was back home.
Amber is a sacred stone in eastern Prussia. Alfred Roeder was a connoisseur of amber, a world-renowned scientist. Also, he was a mystic. He treated amber stones as if they were living creatures. He believed that amber could improve your memory.
For centuries, the stone that the amber room was initially made of was collected on the shores of the Baltic Sea, 80 kilometers away from Königsberg. Amber is petrified resin, which is around 50 million years old. For a long time, local people weren't allowed to polish amber themselves. They were only allowed to collect it and deliver it to the authorities in exchange for food.
Это самый крупный экземпляр.
This is one of the largest pieces of amber that has ever been found here. Its weight is about 3 kilograms. Amber is a very special material. Each piece is unique. Right here, you can see this special pattern. It looks like resin was flowing down a tree, and eventually it assumed this unusual shape.
Researchers who study amber believe that by the 19th century, the art of Prussian carvers had reached its peak. Much of their work was later presented by Prussian kings to other countries as diplomatic gifts, just like the amber room. Amber is a semi-precious stone. It's relatively cheap. This is why after Prussia became part of Germany, toward the end of the 19th century, the amber province was barely able to survive.
Strange as it may seem, it was during Hitler's rule that amber became a national symbol. The official propaganda used to say that every German woman had to buy an amber necklace in order to support the national amber industry.
In the fall of 1944, Britain and the United States started to bomb Königsberg. The scarce information that is available states that the amber room was disassembled once again and hidden in the basement of the royal castle. On April the 6th, 1945, Soviet troops stormed Königsberg. Leonid ARINSHTEIN took part in the battle for the city. On April the 8th, he approached the royal castle on a reconnaissance mission and managed to go inside the very wing where the amber room used to be.
This is a picture taken by our army photographers in April 1945. This is the tower at the royal castle. This is where I got inside. You can see our tanks here. Please note that there is no sign of fire yet on this picture.
Inside the castle, Leonid met a museum worker and asked him why the floor in one of the rooms was covered in amber.
I spoke German, but of course I wasn't fluent. I heard him say, Bernsteinzimmer. This means amber room in German. I understood the word and I got excited. I examined the amber panels lying on the floor and asked him, where's the rest of it? He got excited and started explaining to me. He was using sign language. It's down there, in crates in the basement.
It was too dangerous to go to the basement alone. Leonid decided he would come back the next morning to examine the castle more thoroughly. However, the battle grew fierce overnight. The entire city was on fire.
The first time I was inside the castle was on April 8th, 1945. The next time I managed to get inside was either on April 10th or April 11th. I can't remember clearly. By that time, the castle was on fire. The glass in the windows that you could see on that picture had shattered by then because of the heat.
The royal castle had burned out completely. It was impossible to find out on the spot if the crates full of amber had been destroyed by fire. "20 years later, the castle was demolished. Experts began excavations just several years ago. The first few attempts proved fruitless. ANATOLY, an archaeologist, bemoans the fact that much time was wasted. In 1945, Königsberg's name was changed to Kaliningrad. Up until 1990, the city was closed to experts from other countries.
One of the main versions concerning the amber room was to carry out a check. Were there any traces of the crates with disassembled elements of the amber room in those cellars or not? And we checked out any and all options. Did the crates perish in a fire or not? Perhaps some remains of the amber room were found.
Excavation was carried out in the basement of what used to be a Blutgericht, a wine-selling tavern. The tavern's wine cellars were considered to be the safest place in the castle. These items are the only things that archaeologists were able to find in a cellar. Now the excavation work has moved to another part of the castle. A secret passageway has been discovered here. One explanation is that it's a tunnel connecting the royal castle with the Reichsbank building. Researchers were able to advance 25 meters down the tunnel. There used to be dozens of side tunnels branching off the main one that are yet to be discovered. On the other hand, archaeologists realize that they have found several false leads.
The amber room was in the city that was besieged by Soviet troops. It was impossible to take the crates outside the city. It's possible that the Germans pretended the amber room was still there. They kept some crates in the castle, moving them from one room to another, while in reality, the amber room was stripped earlier. Maybe they had an imitation here to confuse the Russians.
By now, the number of theories regarding the whereabouts of the amber room has reached more than 3,000.